opening. Welcome, and please, everybody, welcome to the ganjaactions.com Cannabis Conference and Expo Series. Thank you very much for joining us. I will admit, once again, we are having some technical issues. This is now being broadcast on YouTube. But what the other sessions were not broadcast. Everything has been recorded. We had a great interview with the minister, an awesome conversation with Tommy Chong yesterday evening. So everything is going on. It will be broadcast out very shortly. It's going to be part of the Ganja Project television program, well, video television program that we're going to be releasing very shortly. So once again, thank you, and thank you for joining us. And this morning again, we have gathered a couple of the regional heads or regional I guess, consultants to the industry. We have Marcus Rampison from Trinidad and Tobago. We have, well, please, everyone, please. I think you guys know each other, but please introduce yourself for the public. Go ahead.
Right, I'll go since my mic was open. I'm Faith Graham. I am the acting CEO of the Cannabis Licensing Authority. I am very excited about this new role. It's an honor being a public servant in and of itself. I believe that service to country is truly noble, right? And because in the end, you know, you're contributing to something bigger than yourself. Right. You're contributing to nation building and to your people. So I believe that is where the reward lies when you work for the government and the people of your country. So I've served in the CLA for a number of years, and now I have this awesome opportunity to serve in this capacity. And very interesting times. Having served under the previous leadership with the former CEO being Mr. Lincoln Allen and the former chair being Hyacinth Cindy Lightburn, I believe that an excellent foundation has been laid.
Yeah, right on.
And so the trajectory is quite clear. And we now have a new board, new chairman and so on, because we have made some changes have been made, and our CEO has moved on, and which is why I'm in the chair now. And so that was excellent. They did very well. We're very proud of the foundation laid under their leadership. And now that we have a new board, new chairman being Mr. Levon Flynn, and we're looking forward to the direction that this new board will take us into. I'm pretty certain that some of the initiatives that have already begun will be continued because there's a lot of value, and also that there will be new things. So just an honor to serve in this capacity and to contribute to the industry and the people of Jamaica. And I hope that in so doing that we can actually build this regional partnership as well.
Right on. And well, is this, I mean, with the new board and the changing of I guess the upper administration, is this a signaling of a new direction? Is the continuation of the direction? Where are things moving at this point?
I believe it's a bit of both, because there are some initiatives that across the board it's supported. You know, for instance, one of our major objectives of inclusion. So that has the buy-in of everybody, previous and present. You know, so some things will continue and some things will be new.
Okay, sorry, excuse me just a moment. All right, sorry about that. We yes, this is a new interesting era that we are in. Technology is dominating us, and technical problems are just bound to happen.
I know.
I think we've lost the good doctor. Anyway, I think I really should be back in shortly. Right on.
So you're gonna finish with your introductions.
We're right, exactly. There we go. Yeah. So please let's carry on. So where are we here? Okay, there we go. Yes. Okay, everybody's back in. Okay, yeah. Let's go down the Caribbean. We started with Jamaica. Let's go to who's next? Barbados and then Trinidad. So please go ahead.
Okay, Barbados. So I'm Dr. Chantal Monroe Knight. I'm the CEO for the Barbados Medicinal Cannabis Licensing Authority. Fairly new for us. We actually officially opened licenses just in January. Legislation completed in 2019. Our regulations were only laid in October of 2020. So we're very much, you know, in the initial stages of rolling out the industry. I would like to say that, you know, one of the things that has been important for us is the support that we have received from other CLAs, so from Jamaica and from St. Vincent in particular, that has been continually open to sharing lessons and working through with us. And I think that's one of the, you know, when you talked about at first in terms of kind of coming together and, you know, kind of sharing lessons, that has been important for us, certainly in Barbados, and something that we intend to continue to share with others that are coming on board and making linkages as well throughout the region. Because even though, you know, we may see each other as, you know, as competition in one respect, I think that there is much that we can do together in order to build out an industry and to learn lessons, right? I would just say, just in terms of introductions as well. So we have a very small team here. We started out with our team initially when we were building the initial framework, just 5 persons. We're now a little bit bigger, but still a very, very small team working through a very, very big industry. And you know, we're up to the challenge, and we look forward to this session to kind of share other lessons and to hear from others. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, thank you. And I've got Marcus.
All right, hi, good morning, everybody. So I'm Marcus Ramkisoon. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, and I am one of the educated cannabis experts and cannabis consultants within the international industry. I sought to bring academics to this field when I realized that a lot of conferences I was attending had a lot of speakers, a lot of expert speakers, but academia was missing. You know, you would find professional lawyers, you would find professional physicians and persons from other fields, but you wouldn't find someone that was really dedicated and specialized in cannabis. As I've dedicated a number of years into the educational aspect of it, and I have so far amassed, I think, 76 qualifications. I was just awarded my post-baccalaureate certificate in regulatory affairs for cannabis control, and I'm currently pursuing my Master of Science degree in cannabis science and commerce out of American International College. So I speak at conferences regularly. I've been the advisor for a number of regional governments. I've written policy for a number of regional governments, including a very large regulatory framework that has been used throughout the region in almost all the countries so far, in part in the compilation of their regulations. And now basically I'm here as an advisor, I'm here as an educator, I'm here as a policy specialist, and I'm basically here to give advice. This is what I'm doing at this point in time. I do have interest in getting into the industry in my country when the law gets here. So I wait patiently in the meantime.
Well, that would be my opening question. What is happening in Trinidad and Tobago? There was an interesting process through which, you know, certain levels of regulations were passed. But what's happened with the industry? It's kind of passed.
So basically, we've passed at the end of 2019. Our government has passed amendments to our current Dangerous Drugs Act, which now allows for the public possession of 30 grams of cannabis per person or 5 grams of resin per adult. Also allows legally for the cultivation of 4 cannabis plants per adult, not in a public space. The regulations are still very loose. Public smoking is now punishable by a fixed penalty notice or a fine. But there's also a lot of confusion still, because you're finding persons being arrested for a joint in Trinidad and still being given a court date and a possession of cannabis offense, whereas you're supposed to give a ticket.
Right,
and this resulted from a lack of proper flow of information from the government to the police, both independent bodies. But you know, there a lot more could have been done in terms of getting the enforcement to come together properly. Now we have a cannabis control bill that is before a joint select committee that is intended to guide our industry like these other countries in the same way. And that Joint Select Committee is scheduled to submit its report at the end of March after a number of extensions this year. And we're hoping that that would be their final report. And maybe by April, May this year at the latest, we would establish our Trinidad and Tobago Medical Cannabis Licensing Authority also and move forward like the other countries. So we're hoping to see some positive changes and movement this year.
Right, and that brings up another question. This is for everyone, because I think Jamaica is the only one that's CLA, that's the Cannabis Licensing Authority. Both Barbados and, as you were just saying, Trinidad, it's the medical cannabis. Why is there going to be a separate organization for adult use or therapeutic cannabis, which is potentially not medicinal? I mean, like, are we going to see? Anyways, what is there a focus on medicinal, or are we going to try to just fully legalize eventually?
I would love to hear Dr. Graham and Dr. Shannon field that question, but what I would like to say just quickly is that any other use within any country, what we do as countries that are signatory to the international drug treaties, we follow the guidelines of the international drug treaties, and that guides our drug law in the 100 and something countries that are signatory to those treaties. Within those treaties are only allowed medical and scientific use, and any other use, meaning religious or adult use, adult non-medical use, which is normally termed recreational, is heavily frowned upon. And countries that have issued non-medical, non-scientific use laws and regulations either have been or will be warned by the International Narcotics Control Board, the INCB, have broken with the international treaties. The INCB has the authority to go further than that and go into things like further warnings, grey listing, blacklisting, sanctioning. But they have said explicitly they are not going to do that for countries that have restrictions for non-medical cannabis use, but they will issue the first warning. Unfortunately, that first warning is enough to effectively prevent a country from exporting cannabis under their cannabis legislative framework. They can do it, but it has to be done under a different framework, usually medical, pharmaceutical framework. So that's something I'd love to hear, because I know St. Vincent for a fact wanted to go with religious use legislation, and the INCB gave them this advice that I just put forward, and they put up their bill, so they didn't bother to even send it into Parliament because they want to get into the export industry without any restrictions. Thanks.
All right. Yes, please. Anyone else want to take that?
All right. Well, yeah. The thing is, I echo a lot of the sentiments that he has said, because the thing about it is, your country, your government ratifies these treaties, right? And Jamaica, of course, has ratified several treaties, to include these 3 drug control treaties: the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, the Psychotropic Substances, as well as the illicit traffic. Now, once you have ratified these treaties as a country, your policy direction has to be in keeping with those treaties. So the Single Convention is the only one that actually allows for a regime where cannabis can be legal, right? But the caveat is it's only legal for medical, therapeutic, and scientific purposes. And what has happened is, because the conventions outline in very much detail exactly how a cannabis licensing authority of a signatory must be set up. It tells you that a plot of land, how the cultivation site must go, that you must have one body or 2 authorities or whatever to treat with and to regulate the use of cannabis, but it is always with the ending for medical, therapeutic, scientific purposes. So anything outside of that will put us in breach of these treaties. And then what can happen is decertification, denunciation, because another thing about it is this: if it is that you are a signatory, you can only trade with other signatories. Right. So therefore, if it is that we are found to be non-compliant and decertified or denounced, then we will not be able to export and import new things for our research and all that kind of thing. So essentially, these regulations are completely tied to these obligations. Now, some persons will assert, why don't you just leave the treaties? Why don't you just depart?
Yes.
It's not as simple as that, because some of those treaties are contingent on other things, other treaties that the governments would have signed. So, for instance, it may impact how you get assistance in other areas, whether from the IMF or whatever. So it is not just these three that has bound us. It is more far-reaching. It goes
They
beyond
hit you.
these three.
They hit you with the politics. They hit you with the. They get you politically aligned. And because I mean, look at Canada. Canada seems to be doing a little something different. But I
But they
don't
have a
hear too
different
much about it.
to some extent they have a different regime, because and one of the common mistakes that is made is that persons tend to compare us in the Caribbean region, especially those of us who have ratified those treaties and are only authorized to do a medical regime. What they have done is they compare us to other countries where it is more liberalized and they have legalization, but we don't have that. So it would be now for the government to determine that they want to change the policy direction completely, which is to go legalization, which will mean departing those treaties, right? Because otherwise you're gonna be in non-compliance. And as my colleague said, the INCB, the International Narcotics Control Board, is right there on the heels, looking out, especially for Jamaica, to
Yeah.
do something like that, considering our location and our reputation of being that hub, right in that hub there, which is the catalyst for all this illicit trafficking, gun for drugs, trading, and all that sort of thing. So they have us under great scrutiny. And one of the things we recognize in one of those meetings that we would have had in Austria with the INCB is that in the same way that our licensing authorities have to go around policing our licensees to ensure compliance, it is much bigger than that one licensee. Because if 1, 2, 3 other licensees are non-compliant, then Jamaica could be non-compliant. As a result, persons from the NCB come out and do their secret shopper situation and go into our herb houses and see if they can really access ganja like that. So we have to be so careful that we have to be so careful how we proceed with this. That is why it is important that we know that we have the opportunity to tap into the market, to the cannabis industry in a legal way. That is why our best bet is to focus on how we can include and get as many of our citizens involved so that they can partake in the industry and benefit from it, even under the medical cannabis regime. Now, there's also the issue of the sacramental use, right? Trinidad calls it religious licenses and so on. The thing about it is this: one of the things that if you read the conventions, it will tell you that those things are not allowed. However, there is the constitution and there is a human rights issue where, for instance, our Rastafarian community, they can't, that is an innate part of the religion, that is an innate part of our culture. And so initially the treaties would have told you that, okay, under principle non-compliance on the basis of the fact that that is a part of your culture, you do that, but you have to phase it out. Overthink. At the time they gave us 25 years to phase it out. Notwithstanding that, though, because the constitution has to supersede some of those restrictions because of human rights and the right of every individual
Right. Right.
to religion and to practice their religion. That is how now Jamaica has been able to pursue the sacramental use of ganja. Another thing, it is not regulated by the Cannabis Licensing Authority
Right.
because based on the Single Convention and based on the amendments made to our Dangerous Drugs Act, we can only monitor the medical cannabis industry,
Okay.
medical, therapeutic, and scientific purposes. So therefore,
Always
it's
so.
a human rights issue. So guess where sacramental falls? It falls with the Ministry of Justice.
Okay.
So they regulate that. So therefore, no, in the practice of your faith as a Rastafari, you ought not to be harassed. You ought not to be penalized, and so on. It's unfortunate that because of the whole international obligations, we have to be issuing permits and so on. But it is what it is. So it is so there is some amount of compromise, but at the end of the day, you're free to practice your religion, to use your sacrament. So what I'm saying, but it is not regulated. No, one of the in the same way now with the whole possession for small quantities, which in other jurisdictions they would refer to it as adult use, right? For therapeutic purposes. We don't like to use the word recreational because our
Therapeutic.
government is not there,
I like that
right?
therapeutic.
And so, but the
It is
thing is,
all therapeutic today.
ganja has grown freely for several years. It was free up until 1913 when they imposed all these restrictions. So it is very difficult as a people, having had this thing such an ingrained part of our culture and our folk culture, and knowing it as folk medicine, to now have a regime that is saying to you it has to be controlled or whatever, and then you're gonna be going to jail for something that you have been using your whole life, generations over time. But guess what? Again, because of our international obligations, we are not able to regulate that as a cannabis licensing authority either. So where does that go? That goes under the Ministry of National Security, because they're the ones now who would have to issue the tickets for those persons who are smoking in the public arena and causing infringing on the other person's right who don't want to be around ganja smoke or any smoke at all. So it is important for persons to understand the distinction and the jurisdictional lines that occur, especially in Jamaica as it relates to cannabis. So CLA, Cannabis Licensing Authority, strictly medical, scientific, and therapeutic purposes. That is where the government is, that is what our obligation says. So anything outside of that is not regulated by us.
All right, interesting. That
made some
plenty questions. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Omar, but Dr. Graham made some huge points there. That was amazing. Great explanation.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Just want to make two quick points on what she touched on, which is Canada. A lot of people are following, especially the governments in our region in the Caribbean. Let's look at Canada. Yeah. Canada has been warned by the INCB that they've broken with the single convention, and Canada has not, nor has it ever, effected any commercial cannabis exports under their cannabis licenses and cannabis laws. The few out of the, I think now almost 400 licensed producers in Canada, there are only 9 of them that have effected exports, and they do so in one of 2 ways. They either join with an already established pharmaceutical company. They apply for the same license that the pharmaceutical company has, which is a narcotics handling license, which many distributors within our region hold to be able to distribute controlled drugs and scheduled narcotics. And in the case of cultivation, scheduled narcotics manufacturing license specific to cannabis, which is usually done completely away from their cannabis legislation and done under their Ministry of Health. So that is how export is done in Canada. It is not done under the cannabis legislation. And two, as much as I fully agree with the issue of human rights, our right to religious practice, and our constitutional rights, Dr. Graham used the right word. She said constitutional law should be, top of the line. Unfortunately, as I've learned and working for the governments in the Caribbean over the last few years, it's not. Law does not apparently trump international law, and that those international treaties guide our laws, not locally in the Caribbean or anything. The U.S. is a unique story. The U.S. has spoken to the INCB, and the U.S. has used the scientific approach. Hello? Oh.
Yeah, man, I'm hearing you. Sorry about that.
Okay, right. Yeah, the U.S. has been a unique case in the sense of they have medical states, which, as you know, is allowed. But when they went adult use non-medical, or what they call recreational, what they did, they explained to the INCB that this is a federal scientific experiment within some of the states that will determine their policy to come. And since it's under the guise of a scientific experiment, they have not been warned yet. That's the only reason the US gets away with adult use, non-medical, what we call recreational use. Yeah, thanks again.
Well,
You know
let me.
something?
Okay, I
Oh,
want
I'm
to get to
sorry.
Barbados. No, because we might lose um Dr. Monroe
I'm
Knight
actually here. I'm actually
shortly.
here. It actually
Okay.
closed me off, but I'm back in now with a new battery, so I'm fine. I just
Okay,
came back in,
okay.
so
I was honestly, let's
I'll
bring
need
you
to get
back.
the
Okay,
flow of the conversation.
let me get you into a conversation before you might have to depart. Not a problem. Well then as I mean that was thank you very much for that answer. That was very comprehensive. That kind of answered that I think for everyone. But so tell me, well, Barbados, you're obviously you're new to this industry, as you just said. What's Barbados's intentions for the industry? I know that you have a very strong tourism industry. I'm assuming there'll be some marriage there. What's the plans for the industry in Barbados?
Okay, so I'm going to answer that, but I'm also want to pick up on something that Mr. Graham talked about, right? When she was responding, the whole notion of how do we make sure that the local players, local entrepreneurs, whether we call them legacy growers, whether we call them master frame groups, how do we kind of make sure the local populations get to participate? And certainly for
Do you
us in
mind
Barbados.
moving your camera a little bit? I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
And I was saying
Thank
that certainly for us in Barbados, that is an important priority for us, right? Making sure that we have what we call the locally derived industry. So that for us, this is not necessarily an industry just for foreign investors to be able to come, cultivate, grow here, and then export.
Right.
But that notion of inclusivity is one of the kind of undergirding principles for us in terms of how we intend to build out our industry. So we spent quite a bit of time working through what that will look like and building what I refer to as the ecosystem of support, right? We are moving away from the notion that some people will have that all that needs to be done is to provide people with either land or money, and that then will allow them to be successful in the medicinal cannabis market. The experience has not suggested that that is the case. And so that we have worked through different kinds of ways in order to provide the necessary support. So whether that is through having a training and certification program, so answering your question now, so one of the priorities for us is that we intend to make sure that we have a well-trained workforce that can participate at the highest levels within the medicinal cannabis framework. So we have partnered with the Technical and Vocational Educational Institute to develop national vocational qualifications, and we intend to, once those are completed, to then also have a CVQ in medicinal cannabis cultivation, right? So that's one kind of pillar on how we are building out the industry in relation to training and certification. Today, as we speak, we have, for instance, sessions going on for the entire day to inform people of the GACP standards, the GMP standards. Last week we did it with processors, etc. So really investing in doing a lot of training from the ground up for the industry. The other kind of particular niche for us is around research and development as well. So again, working with the University of West Indies and other agencies here, and we are looking to exploit the potential for research around, new clinical conditions, research into looking at cultivars, leading to new strains, particularly for Barbados, and leading to patents as well. So a really kind of, long-term view from where we are now, building that out. So we've again invested a lot in terms of partnerships, which is important for us. So not necessarily that as the authority, we are delivering on all of these areas, but building partnerships a lot with a lot of the agencies and internationally as well, in order to give effect to the objectives that we see for the industry playing out. And then finally, you mentioned the issue of tourism. So again, one of the underlying principles for us is the notion that the industry has to be integratable. Meaning that the medicinal cannabis industry for Barbados is not intended to stand on its own, but we are intending to build out linkages with other sectors and industries that are taking place. So the tourism one is extremely important. And in particular, we're really leveraging already the country's reputation in terms of health tourism. One of our licenses is for the operation of a therapeutic facility. And that is intended to be a spa-like facility there that will build on, as I said before, that notion of health tourism, particularly for the island. We are also looking at other linkages as well with the agricultural sector, with education, etc. So really kind of trying to build us a frame that is holistic, because we believe that that model will be a bit more sustainable for us, particularly Barbados is, it's very, very, very small. We don't have the large tracts of land, say like Jamaica and others. So again, trying to have distinct niches within the industry.
So how is there is I'm gonna thank you. Let me ask you, Ms. Graham. There's a lot of talk, and I'll get to everyone on this one as well. There is. I mean, even with the Jamaica rollout, there has been, there's been certain limitations. People were complaining to certain limitations. Now we have the provisional license or the transitional license that should be coming into effect. But what's being done to create a more inclusive and embracive industry in Jamaica? What's being done at this stage? Mute. I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you want to know what is being done to make it more inclusive? That's what you say?
Yes. Correct. Yes.
All right. So we just want to backtrack a little bit to what Marcus was saying. The thing is, we have been able to do exports under the single convention. We developed administrative protocols around it. And so we have had 20 successful exports happening, So small quantities for research purposes, however, but we were able to do that based on the single convention. And I need to say though also that we with the recent changes that occurred in December, with cannabis being removed from Schedule 4,
Right.
that is a big step, I mean, it's not gonna change much on the ground like for Jamaica, because if we have a medical cannabis regime, clearly we have already accepted that it's medicine.
Right.
The Schedule 1 and the Schedule 4 are the most controlled drugs, and so Schedule 4 not only says that the drugs on that schedule are in need of tight controls and so on, and are dangerous narcotics and all those things, but it also says that they don't have any medicinal value.
Right. Yes.
So what is happening now? The fact that it has been removed is legitimizing the medicinal value of this thing. So what I foresee is that some of the challenges that we're facing now may be alleviated later on this basis. I think it will open persons more to research and development, because persons are afraid. Because right now in Jamaica, we have 5 license type, and the research and development license is like the least supported license type.
I was going to get to that when you brought it up. Is there no incentive? Is there no incentive for that? Because I find that most interesting, that there's like 1 or 2 research. Like, I mean, I'm gonna apply for one myself and see.
All right, let me tell you now about that. The thing is, you see, I don't know what my Caribbean counterparts are facing, and in fact, it is my intention to initiate conversations, because the banking issue is a global issue. It's not specific to Jamaica, and we speak of it all the time. And the ordinary person does not have the capital outlay to start up a research facility with those machines that are required. So they're gonna need financing, they're gonna need funding, and so the banks, they say that they are friends, they don't have anything against us, but they're so terrified of their corresponding banking relationships that they just will not support the industry the way they should. But not to stray too much from your point, you asked about inclusion. Now, in our regulations as they are, there are provisions for inclusion, but sometimes we don't want what is before us, because we want things a certain way. And again, we have that inherent feeling that ganja is ours. Why are we have to be submitting to legislation at all? But it is what it is, because guess what? I've always called it the open secret. Everybody knows that ganja is, everybody knows the power of it. And so the rest of the world has found it out. Because as I say, it has been an open secret. So they have found it out, and so they have tapped into it and they have commercialized it.
Right.
Now, yes, it is near and dear to us, but if we want to share in it, we have to get into the commercialization as well.
Absolutely.
So
And into the research and
therefore,
product
even though
development.
our window is just medical, therapeutic, and scientific, it is an opportunity. And so what we've done in the current regulations as they are, we know land ownership is something very difficult for a lot of people in Jamaica, because people live on lands for years, but they don't have a title.
Yeah, yes.
Right? And or they have been on land for years and they don't own it.
Right.
So for the first thing is that we will not pressure them to go and get a title. There are other ways around that. They can do declarations, right? Persons in the community can declare that yes, this person has been living here for 20 years. They have been paying the taxes for this land, whatever. So we use that. If the land doesn't belong to them, then they can get consent from the person who owns the land.
Right.
There's provision for them to access waivers or deferment of the fees. You can't come up with the fees, just satisfy everything else. You get a deferment, you pay a later date, but you can start your business. Or work out some kind of payment
the security
thing with you.
That's also a big thing that people are also just upset about. The need for the fencing, the cameras, and so on. Because that is the real cost.
Yeah, man, I come into it. So the whole matter of the cooperatives and the friendly societies is also another provision, and that is important because of the economies of scale that it can bring when you share expense. You understand? And then now we have different tiers of the cultivators license. Now, unfortunately, irrespective of all those things that I just listed, there are persons who are not able to afford it. Because again, as you just said, based on the fact that cannabis, we have to treat it as a controlled substance, notwithstanding the fact that we have the medical regime. In order to be compliant with our international obligations, we have to put in certain access control mechanisms, one of which would be fencing requirements and surveillance and that sort of thing. For those persons, though, who are not able to afford that, even at a tier 1, this is why we have conceptualized our former CEO. We used to call it a Lincoln permit because he's the one who actually conceptualizes, and we worked on building out the policy for cultivators transitional special permit. Now, what this permit will do, especially for the small farmer, the small subsistence farmer, and for those who want to come out of the illicit space and come into the legal space so that they're not hiding, they're not having to move. This permit will help them with that because the infrastructure requirements will be less. The cost of entry will be less. And even though it will be less, the fact is they'll still have that provision of the deferment of fees available to them and payment plans. So this is an area of entry. We're currently drafting those regulations now, but we might be looking to see ways in which we might be able to fast track it if we can.
Right.
So, because what our end game is to include as many small subsistence farmers as possible who will be able to, at the end of the day, more or less develop themselves to becoming a full license owner so that they can have the full benefits of a license, because this permit will just be a permit. And as you know, the permits don't give you the full weight of a license. So, but it is an avenue in.
Right.
And an opportunity for incremental build up to that status.
Well, people don't know this. People need to be made more aware of this. Please, I've got.
Actually, we've been talking about it a lot. You know, I believe what has happened is that.
Say, why just the big boy thing and and then you got.
No, that's wrong. Because all the 4 things I list out is things that they have rejected because they don't want that. They don't want to pool with others.
Well, I was gonna say that as well. They're with the whole cooperative thing is apparently, but unfortunately the boys, they don't want to do cooperative. They don't want
that. So that is why we came up with the permit for those people who want their independence now. Right. Because I don't want to be a part of any alternative development community program. I don't want to be a part of no cooperative and friendly society. I want my own thing.
Pretty
This
much.
is what the permit will do.
Pretty much.
What is unfortunate is that, you know, in a lot of cases, and I'm certain it is not specific to Jamaica, the wheels of the law turn slowly. And some of these things must be built into regulation. So what happens now is that we have the policy. So we have to now be exploring ways and means of making things easier with the current regime, like identifying things in the current regulations that we may be able to adjust without a big, you know, long process.
Right.
How we're now exploring options of whether we'll be able to get this permit in faster somehow. You understand? So these are the things that we're doing because it's there and it will come, you know, because we're passionate about that for the people. So it's just a matter of getting it done now, and everybody is anxious and excited and awaiting that. So we're cognizant of that, and that's what we're doing. So we continue to talk to the public. We continue to talk to them. We continue to let them understand what's happening. We continue to have our workshops. We're launching a new one soon in terms of, you know, we have a cannabis specialization unit within our enforcement and monitoring section, which tells you that we're not about penalizing people. We're about fostering compliance, which is why we have that unit, because now we have to educate people on the standards that they will require to grow by in order to make it into the international space, because trading amongst ourselves here in Jamaica is not going to cut it forever.
Not.
We're gonna have to go beyond our borders. But if we're gonna be going beyond our borders, we have now been exposed to a lot more competition, and having that exposure now to put ourselves in the best position to capitalize on that and to come out on top is the standards that we'll be using. So like Barbados, we have actually engaged two universities to come up with a program of training for persons who want to get into the industry, because there are a lot of opportunities to begin, not only by becoming a licensee and providing employment, but because we're going now the way of export, there's packaging, there's graphic design, you know, there is nutraceuticals, and where there are issues with that, then we can tap into the whole CBD market, and have those infused products and that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So we have to do a lot of things to increase access.
Right on. Well, I agree. I agree. I was gonna ask Mark the question, but we have let me welcome, I'm not seeing the camera. Dulani, are you with us?
Yes, how are you?
All right, here we go. Just welcome a new friend. This is Dulani from South Africa.
Thanks.
From South Africa. So we've had a little Caribbean posse thing going on here. And I wanted to welcome a few other guests from other parts of the world to see how their industries are going and how they're developing and so on. So Tulani, welcome. Please introduce yourselves to our guests. Hello.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Omari and the team and the family. Thank you very much for the discussion that has been shared on the platform. It's very nice topic. Is what is happening, is what a lot of countries are facing. So it is very nice that we should have this platform more to discuss these issues so that our people, we can raise awareness. My name is Tulani Mkhecha. I'm from South Africa. By academically, I have a master's degree in disaster management. So I come in the cannabis looking at how can cannabis cause a disaster if it's not controlled or regulated correctly. So we are looking on the social part to say how can we minimize the disasters that they could happen socially, maybe caused by cannabis, because it can be used in many areas. Also, we came to develop the organization that is called SIDASA, which is Cannabis Industry Development Association of Southern Africa, where we are looking on the Southern African countries here in Africa to have a unity on trading together so that we can practice trading among ourselves. We should be able to trade with the Swaziland and be able to trade with the Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique, and other countries around ourselves before we can think of Canada, because we see cannabis as a plant that will liberate the economy of Africa in the continent. So our approach is a community development and the inclusiveness of our people and everyone, the non-users and the users. And we are aiming to share an awareness to African countries so that people can enter in this industry with an understanding and with more knowledge and awareness. So we are also looking on applying the 17 SDG goals, Sustainable Developmental Goals of the United Nations, to see that the cannabis and the hemp industry, it can alleviate poverty, it can create employment, it can create new industries, it can create new employment opportunities. So we want to prove, and we want the world to prove for themselves that this industry is required. They have to free the plant and allow the plant to be used by the users. And because of the plant is innocent, it's a very innocent plant. That is why we have to stand for the plant. We must stand up for the plant. The plant is the plant. So we as SIDASA, we push advocacy now. We say we want to see everyone understanding. We want to see collaboration within the continent, working together, like now participating in a conference which is hosted in the continent, which is a nice thing. So we want to see the continent interaction more before we can go outside, because of this is gold for us. If we allow people to come take our gold easy, and then we're gonna cry from this green gold, it will be gone, you know.
Right. So I mean, how is the industry developing South Africa? There are some levels of legality. What's the status at this point in time?
Yes, the industry is developing very well in South Africa now. We are at the stage of our government is busy creating a bill, a law. They are busy with the consultation. Like now, very soon, there's going to be the workshop where our government, Department of Land and Rural Development, is going to call all the contributors to come and to give their input. So the government is giving their role. Also, they're participating in the development of the plant. Like in 2018, February 13, the president spoke during the State of the Nation address to say the plant, the industry of medicinal cannabis and hemp, it must be open for small farmers so that they can be able to be in the business. So we are looking to say we want to call the office of the president and his team to ask him to say, what do you mean about that? Because we still see people being locked due to cannabis. Right. We still see people suffering because of cannabis. What do they mean if they say they want to open the industry? They must come and explain to the people. Then there must be a two-way communication between the community and the government. We must invite the government. We must have a two-way, a way of working nicely to build this industry sustainably for all of us, so that the government can get tax and we can enjoy the plant. We want to enjoy the plant.
Right on. That's good. Well, excellent. Welcome. Well, tell me this, and well, this is because we're almost out of time. But let me throw this out to everyone, in fact, because yes, we all hear of this $1 billion industry. We know it's huge. We know it's coming. We know that the demand is there, and so on. And but there, I've even seen local companies in Jamaica, and I know we see this coming out of Africa as well. With people with their literal business plans, being that we have very, very cheap labor and so on and so forth. What is being done to ensure that we're not creating an industry that's going to be paying people just barely above slave wages because we can get away with it because it's Black people you're talking about? Are we you know, what's being done about that? I guess Barbados spoke of education. That's obviously a pillar. So what else is being done to address such a thing? Just prevent that from happening, really, I would say.
Well, you just heard Ms. Graham speak about all the things that Jamaica CLA is doing towards helping their local farmers, become included in the industry. But she also said that not everyone has the money for it, and I want to make the point that any way we look at this, it is going to be expensive and costly for an individual or an entity to enter into the industry, whether it be medical or non-medical adult use. It's the same. Why? Because you're creating an ingestible product, something that goes into the human body. Jeez. And for any of food, cosmetic, or drug product, there are already well-established laws and guidelines guiding the production of those. And it is usually expensive to engage in the production of the commercial production, at least, of a consumable product of that nature. Just look at water, for example. Why aren't we all filling bottles and selling water? Because the guidelines that guide the industry for health and safety, public health and safety, are costly to get into. In terms of the banking, I know we're running out of time, so I want to say it very quickly. In terms of banking is not very well understood internationally in terms of the cannabis industry. And that's because cannabis remains illegal under US federal law. And a lot of their banking and banking institutions are guided by federal guidelines, of course. However, there are more than 750 institutions within the US that are guided by federal banking guidelines, including the Federal Reserve also, that are engaging in business with cannabis entrepreneurs. What's the difference? It's the state regulations, it's the country's regulations. Mm-hmm. There, for example, Ms. Graham also correctly said that the single convention guides the cannabis industry explicitly. And what it is that when you get to the section on cannabis, it actually refers you back to the section on opium, right? Because cannabis is guided exactly the same way as opium. And then you have to ask yourselves, aren't there opium farmers on our planet that are engaging in medicinal production, licensed medicinal production, and aren't they backing their finances? And of course they are. Why? Because the guidelines that were set by their governments for that industry follow specifically the single convention and those rules. So those countries are following the single convention rules to a T properly without breaking with any of the guidelines, are allowed to engage in banking for their industry. Again, in terms of being inclusive, and I want to tell Ms. Graham, because I did not know that you all are setting up a law right now or a new set of regulations for small farmers. One of the main things is tracking and monitoring, right? Mm-hmm. Again, as an ingestible consumable product, if something goes wrong and someone gets sick, the need for the recall of the product or withdrawal from the product so tracking and monitoring and meeting what we call HACCP, which is hazards and hazards analysis.
Yeah, I know the standard, the hazard analysis standard, yeah.
And once we meet those things with tracking and monitoring, which is not always done in the food industry, unfortunately, but because, yes, cannabis being a controlled substance, there are a number of companies offering proper tracking and monitoring. Places like Metric, which is well known in the States, can be too expensive for Jamaica because one tag is 50 cents US and you have to go through 3 tags per plant in its life cycle, right, or more. So maybe look at MJ Freeway, or which it doesn't exist anymore. It's now incorporated into another company, or BioTrack, or any of the other companies. But once you put that, and Barbados also, and hopefully Trinidad, if anyone listening or sees this video, yeah, for the religious or sacramental or non-medical scientific use, although it's already being done in the medical use legislation, tracking and monitoring needs to be applied to that legislation, especially what you said for the small farmers. If you can get them to purchase the tags, put them on the plant, train them how to monitor the tags, they don't have to scan tags or anything, and you don't have to run to them to do it. Only when they're harvesting, and you can charge a small nominal fee for an inspector being there when they harvest, and everything can run smoothly from that point. The only problem you will have is whether or not a person's home cultivation can meet with testing standards, because remember, this is not a cucumber. If an insect gets stuck to this plant in week 4, week 5 of flower, and it continues to flower, it will flower around the dead insect, right? Or the insect's excrements or anything like that. And then when you go in you will find a foreign body in it, and you don't want to be ingested.
No, you're not interested in that. Yes.
Right. So because it's a sticky plant of this nature, it needs to be looked after in different ways. And once you guys, as you're doing, guide your farmers towards that, maybe put up a small insect-proof greenhouse for their how many ever plants, and they do tracking and monitoring, everything can work smoothly. So I guess, fortunately, non-medical use kind of puts you in a bad position. As you correctly said, Jamaica is only exporting under research and development, which any country with or without cannabis laws can do today. And the maximum is 10 kilograms. But realistically, when we're looking at CBD isolate, for example, from Spain, companies are telling, listen, we're not selling you the isolate unless you order a ton a month. You know, these types of, so 10 kilograms is nothing in the cannabis space. You know, a lot of things will have to be looked at. I've just sent Ms. Graham my number also, and I make myself available to, well, Chantal already is in contact with me, with anyone else that who's watching, maybe even in South Africa, that may need to have this knowledge when building regulatory framework. So you don't have to put it out there and then go back and do it again, basically.
Right. That's real. So what I'm sorry, did anyone else want to address that is that matter about you know how the comes are coming, what are you doing to make sure that we are developing our local industry so that they are commanding appropriate salaries and so on. And I think and then we'll also open up, we're rounding the hour. We'll also open it up to any questions. If anyone in the group and anyone watching has
I have
any
a question, if that's okay. I have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I just wanted to find out, how have the others navigated the banking issue? And as coming from this point, the way it impacts us, when COVID just started, we developed a policy right away for our retail herb houses for online sales, because you know the restriction on movement and the restriction of gathering. But it is medicine, so the people need to get their medicine. So we developed an online sales policy. Now, because of the banking situation, persons could make their orders online, but they can't pay the full thing online.
Right.
So we allow them to pick up on the curbside, but then they have to be exchanging money on the outside. Very untidy situation, considering we're trying to be so secure.
Right, of course.
You know what I mean? And so our banks either take back your account if they know that you have one. If you know that it's cannabis business you're doing, they are not going to give you anything, an account to open for it, and they're not going to give you any financing.
I got a company named ganjactivist.com. Trust me, I'm well aware.
And then it is going to know if the Proceeds of Crime Act people come on to you. How you have all this money, this cash? You understand? So it is so it has been such an act to balance this thing. Now we want to add delivery protocols into the whole thing, because COVID getting worse, and it will just complement nicely the retail delivery system. How do you guys deal with it? What happens in your different jurisdictions in terms of how the money is managed, the banking aspect? How you get around it? How you cope?
Chantal?
We don't cope.
Right, okay.
We're not able to get around it at the moment. I know Marcus wants to come in. So it is something that we're just doing advocacy on, but we will anticipate we will have some of the same challenges that you're having now. There are no easy answers to do with it. And I particularly think that this is one of the areas where an active CARICOM lobby should be strong and should come into place. And I think perhaps then we'll be able to make some movement. I think that the move to assure the banks that the industry is functioning, as Marcus stressed about, track and trace, that we're doing it securely, it's going to be properly regulated. But at the same time, the whole element of de-risking creates a conservative.
De-risking is the problem. That is the problem, because our banks here, I've met with them and they have said that they support the industry, but the de-risking aspect keeps them from showing the support to the industry. You know what I mean? So, but when we met with your team, they had mentioned that you guys were contemplating something like Easy Pay or PayPal in your system. Have you had any research on it to see how it might work?
So it doesn't answer what the system that we have doesn't answer the banking issue on it. It isn't PayPal. So I think that was a little bit of a mix up. So all this allows us as a people to pay their fees, doesn't deal with the issue of banking at all.
Ah, okay. So
Yeah.
you know the Cannabis Licensing Authority in Jamaica, it took us a while to get a bank account, you know.
Yeah, we still don't have one.
And we're the authority, you know, we're the authority, the
Even
government.
a government agency. Are you serious? Is it
Yes.
that bad?
Yeah,
But we
we don't have
finally got,
one.
we eventually got it.
I was here. I did hear something about that, and I was quite perplexed at the time.
We fought to get that account.
I mean, so that's that. I mean, so that's the real crux of at least a huge developmental problem. It is the banking. That's really, that's. I mean, so if there no community banking, no there. I mean, can we
Oh.
there no Caribbean
And
bank?
there is one jurisdiction that found a way around it. I think it is it St. Vincent? I believe it's St. Vincent. We were in a forum, and I think they said that they have maybe they're a national bank
Yeah, they're national
that
bank
decided that
facilitate.
they would absorb whatever it is that they need to absorb, but their people need to be banking this money.
Right.
You know, I don't know, but our Bank of Jamaica is not one of those.
I invited them. I didn't get a final confirmation from them. I do apologize that St. Vincent that they're not here. Some of my emails do end up in junk mailboxes. I'm assuming again because there's ganja in the names, and so I wish we could have had somebody to address that. I did. Marcus, sorry, you were going to say something. What you want to chime in?
So guys, basically banking is a major issue, as I gave you reasons before. And again, I know we're running out of time, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. So long as the country is not in line with the single convention laws, banking is not going to be plausible or possible. St. Vincent is in line with the single convention laws. The INCB has given them approval for their Medical Cannabis Industry Act and their Traditional Farmers Act, and told them again, if they went forward with their Religious Use Act, they would be warned and they will not be able to do X, Y, and Z. So they pulled it from moving forward. So as of now, as much as they're still building regulatory framework, they are compliant. And national banks, yes, can work with, they have the choice, you know, but a bank, a large part of their business is going to be US corresponding business. And if they lose US corresponding business because they're working with an entity that's not following the single convention guidelines, not an entity, sorry, a country that's not following the single convention guidelines, they can then be in trouble. If they are, it'll be fine. In terms of what you guys need to do, Ms. Graham, since you cannot change the legislation anytime soon and you cannot backtrack and religious sacramental use, you may have to be able to do the one thing I think you can do is do what we saw in Colorado, California, and a number of those places, which is there have been secondary companies that have been set up to take credit card payments, and that company will then make the credit card payments to the credit card company. Those companies are not set up as cannabis businesses, or they're not set up as businesses that are engaging in cannabis. They're set up as all sorts of other things. Flowers, candy,
trucking.
Right. But they collect the payments. I forget exactly what the term for it is, a secondary payment center. So when, like, you're talking about delivery and you're talking about online payments, when your consumers make those online payments to your licensed retailers, those payments do not go directly to the licensed retailers. They are paid through the secondary element. So the credit card statement comes back as, you know, candy shop payments.
As a third party entity type of thing.
It is not, it is legal, but it is frowned upon because they're doing multiple facets of business. However, it does work, and it's been working cleverly in the Netherlands for the longest while, and in Europe, it's been working in a number of states. So that may be the best option you guys have now, because you're looking at it now for COVID time for online sales and delivery.
Right.
Yeah, that might,
and COVID could be a good excuse to push that as well. I would say we could use that. We could leverage that. Anyways, we rounded out the hour. Thank you guys ever so much for joining us. Sorry, let's have a final word from where did South Africa go? From Tulani? Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
Any final word from you? Any questions? Anything you'd like to learn from your Caribbean counterparts?
No, the only thing that I would like to say is that we should have more of these platforms so that we can see that how can we collaborate, because of collaboration is very, very key. And there must be a knowledge exchange. That means we should be able to take young students to learn innovation and creativity around the cannabis and hemp industry. So we should see that if there are cities in Africa that can host or that can give plans to students to learn about this medicinal cannabis science, I think that will be good. It will be great for us as we move forward and we understand the deep science of medicinal cannabis and industrial hemp. As I had a privilege to attend one of the conference of Tech, they focus more on the science more, you know, so we should let our young people coming into the industry and enjoy the industry. That's all I can say from South Africa.
Good
All
point.
right.
Like that.
All right, cool. Right on, right on. All right. Well, all right. Well, thank you all once again. Thank you to all my guests for participating in this session of the ganjactors.com Cannabis Conference and Expo series. It is being broadcast live. I know there's gonna be a word delay. But thank you. There's so much that could be discussed that I'm gonna have to do my one-on-one interview with each of you. I will be in touch. I will do that. But anyways, all of this will be recorded and posted up online very, very shortly. Thank you once again. And were there any? I asked if there were any questions. I saw no raising hands. Was there any questions from the crowd, from the group? Anyone?
Sorry to interrupt.
There we go. Okay.
My name is Audrey Rowland. I'm a Jamaican female who's very interested in the industry. I've been attending meetings and so forth, and this has been very informative. I'm very thankful for the information that is being shared, and I'm interested in the the permits, and I'll be keeping track of everything, and hopefully soon I'll be applying for my license.
Right on.
And I would love to see more women involved in the industry, and I'm so glad that there are women at the head of the industry.
I was just thinking that. I said, look, I was literally thinking.
Right. I think it's Women's Month. Is it Women's Month or something?
March.
Yes.
Okay,
So it
all right.
is very good to see, and I will be in touch with CLA shortly. I'm working on it, but I will be in the industry because it's very interesting. It's something I've been interested in from going to Nyabingi way back when, and knowing the purpose and all the issues surrounding it and the history behind it. I'm very interested, and thank you, everyone. I'm learning, and hopefully I'll be given the chance to apply it. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
We're looking forward to you joining the industry.
Thanks, Faith. Thank you.
There you go.
All right.
Excellent.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you all. Any closing remarks? Any more questions? I haven't seen anything else coming in. Any closing remarks? Anybody? Any message to the industry? And sorry, I didn't catch your name. This session will be posted up online very shortly. Ganjactors.com. Please visit the website. You will see a lot of content. There's some videos. Very, very shortly, we're going to be releasing our video series, the Ganja Project. So look out for that. We are full supporters of the industry. When you do get your license, I'll come and feature your farm. Let me know, please.
So just before we go, Amari, so I just wanted to say just a little bit like Talani, just to say good conversation, and we certainly need to have more of these so that we can kind of share, like I keep saying, the lessons learned, in terms of moving forward and building up the industry. I just want to say that for us, and I think I'm hearing that for Jamaica as well, how let me put it another way. For us, what success looks like is when we can look across this industry and see the average Barbadians participating at whatever level.
Right.
I think my signal message to everybody is that the industry is not only open up for people who want to have licenses. There's so many different ways that you can participate and get involved in the industry, whether you're just interested in investing in the industry. We call it, whether or not you don't want to touch the plant itself,
right, yeah,
but there's so many different things that you can do to get involved in the industry, to get involved in the business. So really encourage people to kind of look at those opportunities. So yes, while it is a high capital intensive industry, I'm going to go back again. I am a very, very big proponent of the cooperative model.
Right.
Particularly as a model for allowing disadvantaged groups to be able to participate. I'm not so sure why in the region, we have this thing that we have to go it alone. When we look again at successful endeavors and pick some of those lessons, it is sometimes groups who can come together to leverage those resources who are then able to be successful. And it is a model that we are here putting a lot of emphasis on to bring groups of people to be able to work together and be able to pool resources, and we are facilitating that as well, that pooling of resources and making incentives if there are cooperatives out there who want to be able to participate as well. So, I mean, I think, I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody else, but when I hear the tenet of the conversation, I think that there is a commitment for building out this industry that is based on inclusion of Caribbean people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
I agree.
Anyone else? Any final comments?
Final comment from me is that useful forum. They think good to hear an exchange and at least to be able to exchange contacts so that it can go beyond this discussion. You know what I mean? And I believe that having started our industry, with our regs came into promulgation in 2016. First license issued 17 and so on. And I think we're at 70 odd licenses now, and I think that's an exponential growth. And if the banking situation were free, we would have another 300 more
Absolutely,
who could come over into it. And so now that we have seen the strictures of the regulations coming down from our international obligations, we are also seeing with the development of the industry, the evolution of it, and the developments in other jurisdictions where there are some things that we may be able to loosen up on now in regs, and there are some things that need to remain and some things that need to be tightened up on. And so for Jamaica, what we're looking to do is to promote ease of access, ease of doing business, making the regulations less challenging and more flexible. That's gonna be one of our primary focus areas going forward, and to tap into more research, because that will drive the industry. And within the CLA, we do have that research capacity. We have cannabis specialization officers who have agricultural backgrounds, agronomy and stuff, so they know exactly. And of course, we must be supporting the other government ministries, for instance, our Ministry of Tourism, who is now looking into, say, how do we do tourism destination assurance with cannabis in the mix? How do we get the tourists to get the legal product, and we ensure that they're safe and that kind of thing. So we're going to be working with our Bureau of Standards who have promulgated the standards to get our Jamaicans up to speed so that we have the best quality product and we can continue to make our contribution to the lives of Jamaicans through this cannabis industry and so on. We also have hemp. I see somebody putting hemp.
I was just about to say that we didn't even get to hemp, but there was, what's
I think that's another discussion, but there is hemp. There is hemp.
Yeah.
Our take on hemp, because Jamaica is small and we are cognizant of the risks of cross-pollination, which would threaten both industries. And, Jamaica is primarily a ganja country over hemp, to be quite frank. But we are authorized through regulations to regulate both industries. And so we have been doing so through policy, and also we have drafted regulations for hemp. But our hemp, it's not industrial hemp for fiber and those things. Because of the cross-pollination risk, what we are focusing on is hemp for CBD. So it means, therefore, that it is medicinal hemp.
Still the flowers.
So less than 1% THC and 10% or more CBD. That is the crux of our hemp policy.
Right. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I guess, guys, for me to just close off, I think thanks for having me. It's been really informative, I think. Also, I just want to congratulate Jamaica and Barbados. First of all, yes, Ms. Ruland was very important, and especially in this time, to have women leadership right now, especially in an industry like this, is huge and is very important. And I amazed and a job that you guys have been doing. Both those countries outside of the other countries in the region that are initiating laws have really tried to become all inclusive in terms of how they assist the citizens of the country. Jamaica has been doing it for quite a while now. Barbados has just come online, and Chantal works her boons off. Right? Dr. Chantal is always working, and she tries her best in Barbados, her and her team, to ensure that everyone there has a chance, is well informed of what they need to do. You see some countries, they just say, here's the applications, fill it out. You come with applications and then they tell you, look, it's not complete, it's this. But these guys are trying to be inclusive and trying to. So I congratulate with all my heart. In terms of hemp, really quickly, I was around 2010 when isolated CBD was 120,000 euro per kilo, right? Up to prior to the first US harvest under their legal framework now, that dropped to 4,500 to 7,500 US per kilo, isolated CBD from hemp. Right now, after the US harvest, it's 750 US dollars per kilogram of isolated hemp, of isolated CBD. In other words, persons can make more money in the US if they plant tomatoes on their land than if they planted hemp for CBD. So be very careful. A small company entertaining the possibility of creating CBD from hemp. It's better to create CBD from medical cannabis and draw regulations as such, because once isolated, it's still going to be isolated CBD with no THC. So there are regulatory framework around that. But otherwise, for countries like ours, I think when Colombia comes online, no country in the Caribbean is going to be able to neither a lot in the States in the US is going to be, and it's going to drop so low, it's probably not going to be as feasible as we think anymore, right? So I'm not saying CBG and all that stuff, but that's a different element. And Barbados and Jamaica also has to be really proud. Barbados has Dr. Damien Cohol, who is a well-renowned international researcher in cannabis. And now with the new laws on research and development, I'm sure is going to do huge projects in Jamaica with the University of the West Indies. And Jamaica has Dr. Henry Lowe, who was identified and was the first person to identify, like we hear about Dr. Meshulam has identified THC. Dr. Lowe has identified CBT, right? And he's Jamaican, and most of his work is in Jamaica.
We've met him before.
The medical products on the shelves in Jamaica from as far as I understand, the early 90s, right? That unfortunately, because of regulatory framework, could not leave Jamaica. But they have pharmaceuticals on the shelf. Jamaica has been doing so much for so long that they really deserve to be on top. And I really hope that under your leadership in CLA, that you guys can get there really quickly, because you guys are going to be the only country in the region that will have something to export. If everything else fails, people in the world something from Jamaica.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you for that.
Will always remain, and none of us in the region have what you guys have in terms of that. So you need to capitalize very quickly and very intelligently on your intellectual property rights. Right? But
yes.
I make myself available to you at any time. I'm not won't charge or anything like that. I'm here for advice. Dr. Monroe can confirm. I'm here to give my services, because, as we correctly said, we do want to see this industry progress within the region in the best way possible, in the most correct way possible, so that we don't have to face any issues within the industry afterwards. So, guys, thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. I have to leave now, Mr. Jackson, but thank you so much. I have another meeting. I'm going to have to log in.
Yes, all right.
All right. Thank you,
much.
guys.
Thank you so much. All the best, everyone. Keep safe.
Bye.
Soon. All right. Bye-bye. One love. Bless.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yes, and to all our guests, this will be rebroadcast shortly online. You can check everything on our website. And thank you once again for joining us. One love.